El Salam, this is video 2. Okay, so we're going to pick up right here about Phyllis Wheatley. Okay? Now, so one example perhaps the most pathetic, most misunderstood artist we're talking about, the most misunderstood artist, okay, can provide a backdrop for our mothers, okay, and her name is Phyllis Wheatley. This is the artist that was most very misunderstood. She was a slave in the 1700s. Okay, now we're going to examine the life of some of the work of Phyllis Wheatley. Okay, now, but in the meantime, we're going to talk about Virginia Woolf. In her book, A Room of One's Own, she wrote that in order for a woman to write fiction, she must have two things: certainly a room of her own with key and lock, okay, and enough money to support herself. What then are we to make of Phyllis Wheatley, a slave who owned not even herself? This sickly, frail black girl who required a servant of her own at times. Her health was so precarious, and who, had she have been white, would have been easily considered an intellectual superior of all the women and most of the men in society of her day. Okay? Virginia Woolf wrote, further speaking, okay, so Virginia Woolf wrote further, speaking, of course, not of Phyllis, okay, that any woman born with a great gift in the 16th century, and we are to also consider the 18th century for that, any woman born in the 18th century also, and we're all to remember also to insert black woman. We're to include black woman in that statement, which Virginia Woolf wrote about, speaking of women born with great gifts in the 16th century. We're also to consider, black women born in the 16th century and with great gifts, how difficult it must have been for them as well. And we're also to consider how difficult it was not only in the 16th century for black women to have, or women to be born with gifts in the 18th century, how difficult it was for them to be born with gifts as well as even in the 18th century, okay? And we're also to consider how difficult it was for not only black women, but what about black women who were held in bondage, okay? And held in bondage and used as slaves, okay? It would certainly have gone, they would have certainly, okay? If they were born with great gifts in the 16th to 18th centuries, they would have certainly gone crazed. Okay, they would have shot themselves or ended their days in some lonely cottage outside the village, half witch, half wizard, or a saint, feared and mocked at. For it needs little skill and psychology to be sure that a highly gifted girl who had tried to use her gift or of poetry would have been so thwarted and hindered, okay, by contrary instincts, okay? And so contrary instincts is doing something that goes against one's own will. That's a contrary instinct, okay? So, and we're to think, okay, so if they had a great gift and they were even scared to use it because it was so difficult because of the challenges they would have faced because they were hindered by society, okay? So we're to also think what it would have been like for, okay, so they would have been they would have been, they would have been scared to use their gifts, okay, because as I said, they would have been thwarted by and hindered by contrary instincts, and were to think about, add to that, how difficult it would have been to use their gifts. Not only would they have been hindered by contrary instincts, but they would have been hindered by guns. They would have been hindered by the chains. We're speaking of black people, of course, black women. They would have been hindered by the chains, by the bondage, by the gun, because it was illegal to read, to write, to do anything intellectual, right, other than be a slave. Okay, they would have been hindered by the lash or the whip or the ownership. Okay, of one, because they didn't even own their own bodies, right? So, their body was owned by someone else. Okay, so, or they had submission to alien religion, because many of the Africans who were brought here from the nation of Jacob, many of them were Muslim. Okay, many of them were Muslim. Okay, and many of them were, because Ethiopia is one of the first Christian nations, so many of them were very devout Christians. So one can begin to see where their strong, spirituality comes in, which held, which enabled them to survive. Okay, all the abuses that they suffered. Okay, so we're going to continue about. So this must have. So they were hindered to such a great degree that she must have lost her health and sanity, okay, to a certainty. Okay, now, and that's why earlier, they was speaking of how, many of them appear to be lunatics, or many of them appear to be, insane, which they were not. They just had to overcome such inhumane challenges, okay, to be able to use their gifts. And not only that, as I said, many of them saw a gift was like a curse, because it was like, it defied, having a gift defied, their physical environment. Okay, they couldn't afford to be intellectual. They couldn't afford to think about anything other than surviving. The torment, that accompanied the bondage. That accompanied bondage. So the keywords as they relate to Phyllis are contrary instincts. Okay, so these are the This is the way a writer, has can be. Well, this is a way of perceiving Phyllis's writings as contrary instincts. She has to go against her own will to express her gifts, and do the will of the will of someone else. Okay. For when we read the poetry of Phyllis Wheatley, as when we read the novel of Nella Larson, or the oddly false surrounding autobiography of the freest of all black women writers, Zora Hurston, evidence of contrary instincts is everywhere. Her loyalties were completely divided, as was, without question, her mind. But how could this be otherwise? Captured at 7, a slave of wealthy, doting whites, who instilled in her the savagery of Africa they rescued her from. The savagery of the Africa they rescued her from. One wonders if she was even able to remember her homeland as she had known it, or as it was really. And that's true because, as we discussed, many of the, no, the Africans that were napped, okay, were from the kingdom of Judah, the Ethiopian kingdom of Judah. They were Hebrews, a Hebrew nation, the Hebrew nation of Jacob, from the Ethiopian kingdom of Judah. One of the most honorable, intelligent, spiritual nations of the world, right? So, which has connections to King Solomon, right? And Queen Sheba, the King David, Moses, prophetic lines of in history, okay? Going all the way back to, like I said, Moses, and Yusuf or Joseph, going all the way back to Jacob, right? Going all the way back to Prophet Abraham, okay? So these were people, whose ancestors were legendary, yet they were told that they were rescued from a savage environment, as Africa was, a savage, inhumane, barbaric environment. Yet were lied to, and they had not known, meaning those such as our ancestors, our grandmothers and mothers, grandfathers. They didn't know that they were descendants, of royalty, spiritual royalty. They didn't know that they were to inherit a legacy to which the prophet born of a virgin was to return and lead their nation, okay, back to Allah, back to, not only lead their nation, but lead the world back to divinity. Okay, that is their spiritual legacy. Their spiritual legacy, of the Africans, of the Hebrew nation of Jacob that were stolen from Ethiopia, the kingdom of Judah, and distributed throughout the world, and it's enslaved, distributed throughout the world, held in bondage and enslaved. They were told that they were saved from savagery, right? Saved from the savagery of Africa, right? So they didn't. These people held in bondage. They didn't know that they were, spiritual royalty, and that, as I said, the prophet born of a virgin is to come and lead that nation and the world, okay, back to divinity. Okay, they didn't know that. They weren't told that, and she was captured at 7, right? Okay. By doting whites who instilled in her. They kept her. Her ancestors were savages, okay? And they rescued her, okay? And then we'll continue on, okay? One wonders if she was even, meaning Phyllis Wheatley, who was captured at 7, one wonders if she was even able to remember her homeland as she had known it, or as it really was. Yet, because she did not try to use her gift of poetry in a world that made her a slave, she was so thwarted and hindered by contrary instincts that she lost her health. Okay, and that's like that's like life today, right? So if a person doesn't use their gift, okay, their life becomes hell. Right? There goes against their own instincts, their own, that's contrary to their own good, contrary to their own benefit, to serve someone, something that's unbeneficial to themselves, and they are aware of it, okay? one has to use their inherent gifts, okay? Use their own mind, right? Okay. In the last years of her brief life, we're talking about Phyllis Wheatley, okay, she was burdened not only with the need to express her gift, but also with a penniless, friendless freedom and several small children for whom she was forced to do strenuous work and to feed. She lost her health, certainly, okay, suffering from malnutrition and neglect, and who knows what mental agonies Phyllis Wheatley suffered before she passed away, right? Before she died. Okay, so torn by contrary instincts, was black, kidnapped. Well, okay, so torn by, contrary instincts, was black, kidnapped, enslaved Phyllis Wheatley that her description of the goddess, as she poetically called the liberty she did not have. So she called freedom God, the goddess. Okay? That's what she called freedom, the goddess. And everybody thought, how could this crazy black woman, she must be out of her mind to be able to see God, think she has the ability to see God. Okay? Okay? As she poetically called liberty, because that was what freedom meant to her. It was God. It was a goddess. It was, just that beyond her. Okay? So, she did not have, is ironically, no, so as she poetically called the liberty she did not have, is ironically cruelly humorous, okay, and in fact has held Phyllis up to ridicule for more than a century. It is usually read prior to hanging Phyllis's memory as that of a fool, okay, because this is what I'm going to read. Phyllis Wheatley's poem, okay, about the goddess, which was freedom to her, what freedom meant to her, okay. It was like her seeing, it was, well, I won't say it was like her seeing, I won't try to interpret it, because I really haven't, I want to read it to you, okay, and you make your own interpretation, but anyway, that's what freedom meant to her. It was a goddess, okay, it was her goddess. Her personal goddess was freedom. Okay? Now, and they took her to be a fool for wanting freedom. So for seeing freedom that divine, she was taken to be a fool. Okay? Now, this is Phyllis's poem. The goddess comes. She moves divinely fair. Olive and laurel binds her golden hair. Wherever shines this native of the skies, unnumbered charms and recent graces rise. Okay? So that was her poem, and from them, for at that time when she wrote that poem, it was like, how could this black slave, ignorant black savage, even professed to see God, when even most white people couldn't even read at that time, and also many the Bible in Europe, many of white people weren't even allowed to read the Bible. To even own a Bible was illegal for them to read, to have in their possession. So if they were forbidden from even ownership of a Bible, how in the hell this black woman gonna say she see God or a goddess, when first of all a goddess, when everybody knows God is a white man, right? So she must be out of her damn mind. That slavery must have done that to her, right? Or her savage background, right? Because she can't be smart enough to see God. How in the hell she gonna see God? God gonna come to a Negro, to a nigger, right? Okay. So it is obvious that Phyllis, the slave, combed the goddess' hair every morning, prior perhaps to being to bringing in the milk or fixing her mistress lunch. She took her imagery from the one thing she saw elevated above all others, and that is Phyllis Wheatley. She took, she took her image of God from the one thing that she saw elevated above all else, okay, and that was freedom, okay. With the benefit of with the benefit of hindsight, we ask, how could she? But at last, Phyllis, we understand. No more snickering when. Okay, so now it's like we understand what she meant by that. So that's why it says, okay, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back, we ask, how could she? But at last, Phyllis, we understand. No more snickering when you're stiff, struggling, ambivalent. Lines are forced. Lines are forced on us. We know now that you were not an idiot or a traitor, only a sickly little black girl snatched from your home and country and made a slave, a woman who still struggles to sing the song that was your gift although in a land of barbarians who praise you for your bewildered tongue. It is not so much what you sang as that you kept alive in so many of your ancestors. No, it is not so much what you sang as that you kept alive in so many of your ancestors. The notion of song. Okay, so the gift, because gifts are instinctive, right? They come not from reading a book or somebody else's collection of knowledge, okay, which the educational system which the universities are supposed to be a collection of someone else's learned knowledge and experience, right? Because individuals like Phyllis Wheatley have a gift for understanding certain things, gifts to which they don't understand what they even understand. No, they don't understand why they understand it. They just do. And because it's not validated by, it can't be validated by those who have lesser knowledge or gifts or abilities. She's seen as mad, or she's seen as crazy, or and especially if she's black, and as I said, and held in bondage, right? And talking about the goddess comes to her, right? So the goddess does come to her through her intellect, right? Because despite they were held in bondage, they still had an intellect, right? They still had a consciousness. They still had a brain ability to speak, right? They still had that intuitive programming in their heart, right? Okay. Now, okay. Black women are called in the folklore that so aptly identifies one's status in society, the mule of the world. And mules of the world aren't supposed to see gods, right? They're not supposed to see God and goddesses, or interpret the language of God and goddesses, and and what I mean by the language is the mythologies and all this kind of stuff, and kind of do it intuitively without even having been exposed to the written word, right? Okay, so that will be insane. They're talking to themselves. They're lunatics. They're insane, right? Okay, because they shouldn't be able to do that, right? Okay, now, so they're seen as mules of the world because we have been handed the burden of everyone else, right? We've been handed the burden everyone else refuses to carry. And then when we have the audacity to be able to to successfully achieve the goal, okay, and do it with some manner of dignity and respect and intelligence, okay, then it's like, you know, she's crazy. Something's wrong with her, or she's too strong. No, she's too aggressive, or too abrasive, right? Too manly, right? Like Sojourner Truth, right? Okay. Now, so we carry the burden that most don't want to carry, or it's pushed upon us. Those burdens are pushed upon us, right? Being the what? Like in The Color Purple, when, the woman asked Oprah, the character playing Oprah, Sophia, when she came up and started rubbing her little child on the head or something she did, and then said, "Oh, they're so clean, like we don't like black women, and at that time and still today, don't know how to take care of no children, despite they're the mothers of the world." Right? And so this is a perfect time to do this video because it's a Libra new moon, right? A Libra full moon, right? And Libra represents the woman, right? Libra represents Venus, and Venus represents the mother of the universe, right? Okay. She represents the holy mother of the universe. Okay? Now I know Virgo does too, but Virgo also represents Venus, right? Not Venus per se, but the woman as it relates to Venus, right? Okay. So now, but yet, despite she has that honored position, mother of Africa, right? Mother of humanity, she's supposed to be a damn idiot. She ain't supposed to know a goddamn thing. And she ain't supposed to be beautiful, despite, if she the mother, then all the women that come from her, okay, are, and if other women who come from her are seen as beautiful, then she's the ultimate beauty, okay? Much like myself. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so to try to denigrate her, okay, or degrade her, demean her, okay, her beauty, her position, okay, by to anything less than her status, okay, is ignorance, just like they did Phyllis Wheatley, okay, by saying by making her seen as if she was a lunatic, but or a fool, but nonetheless idolizing the things she said, okay. Now as if, wow, how can that crazy person, possessed person, speak so sanely? She don't have the mind to do that. She don't have the capacity to do that. And she black, right? She don't have the skin color to do that, right? Much like black women are seen today. Everybody is trying to, it's said, in Islam, it's said, don't try to go above your mother's head. Stay under her feet. And that means, at story time, right? At story times, what do children do? They sit down, and the mother sits in the chair and reads them a story. Right? Or she teaches them. She teaches them while they're sitting at her feet. So that is what is meant by stay under your mother's feet. Don't try to go above her. Don't ever, never ever think that you are better than your black mother. Okay? You come from her. Okay? And this is just some of the experiences that the black women, our mothers and grandmothers, experienced, and how they were perceived, and how we got to this point where the black woman is still supposed to be the mule of the world, right? And carry everybody else's burden, babysit everybody else's child, perceive everybody else's child as beautiful except her own. Her own child is supposed to be seen as basically like it was in the 16th, 18th century, to which the Vatican gave this kind of this connotation was adapted from the bondage, when black women were beautiful, sexy, hot black women were held in bondage, right? Pickaninnies, right? Okay, so black women, their children are still supposed to be perceived as pickaninnies. Okay, they're not supposed to see their children as beautiful. They're not supposed to try to empower their children. They're supposed to yell and cuss and scream and talk bad at their children, demean their children, right? Right? Treat them harshly and abrasive. Look down. Even the black mother is not supposed to see her children as beautiful. We're supposed to have a disdainment for our own children. Well, I tell you right goddamn now, I think mine are beautiful. Exceptionally, exquisitely beautiful. That's why I post them all the time. Because they are beautiful just like me. They come from me. And if you think any other woman is beautiful, okay, other than a black woman, just remember that woman, whatever woman you think is beautiful, came from a black woman. Okay? As did all women, all humanity. Okay? Even the men, when they get, when you see them as beautiful, look at your black mother. Okay? Now, that beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. No, beauty's in the womb of a black woman. Okay? That they try to dismiss. Okay? Like they did Phyllis Wheatley. Like she wasn't able to see the God. The goddess was within herself. As a mother of the universe, as a representative of all femininity in the universe. Okay, that as it is represented in throughout the universe, she represented the divinity of femininity. But yet she wasn't supposed to see that in herself. She was to be seen as a fool. By foolish. Why? Because insanity cannot comprehend sanity. Just like Michael Jackson. Want to label him mad, wacko, jackal, because y'all fucking fools didn't understand. Don't limit somebody else because of your own ignorance. And this goes out to the ignorant people, okay, who still believe in that plantation consciousness, who still want to support it like the goddamn drum, who said black people ain't no good for nothing but what? Having sex, and they're lazy and ignorant, and what they don't even make matchsticks and stuff. When much of the gold and diamond mines are all in Africa, black people are poor because of oppression, not because they're fucking poor. Okay. Because if all African people, not just the Hebrew nation of Jacob, the global Hebrew nation of Jacob, but if all of Africa had access to its wealth, there would be no ghettos, there would be no Sowetos, okay? There wouldn't be none of that, okay? So black people aren't supposed to see themselves beautiful. Black women aren't to see themselves as beautiful. The world aren't to see in commercial plantation consciousness. Okay, those who continue to subscribe to plantation consciousness, okay, they would have you think that black women are not to see themselves as beautiful or sexy. They're supposed to represent what the commercial world represents of standards of beauty, and that's that no boobs, no waistline, no nice, hot, sexy Jupiterian ass, a booty, okay, which is wealth in and of itself, right? Because it's full of beauty, right? Okay, so that's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be the stick figure, like the straw man, right? That's what's supposed to represent beauty, a boy figure, right? What a boy, the figure of a boy, okay? A number 2 pencil. That's supposed to represent beauty, okay? So that you won't be able to distinguish a male from a female. That's what they want to show as beauty, because a black woman has the curves. A black woman has the booty, Jupiter's booty. A black woman has the luscious lips, the full lips, the strong, intense voice that can just grab your attention. Okay, but black women aren't to see that in themselves. We're supposed to look at ourselves and be disgusted by what we see in the mirror, to the point where we just want to alter our nature to accommodate. Right? We ain't supposed to see ourselves. We ain't supposed to see the goddess. We ain't supposed to see Mother Africa in ourselves. We ain't supposed to see the celestial mother in ourselves, celestial divinity of femininity. We ain't to see that. We got to turn away, or else we could both be seen and saying, no, I see myself. I know, I see my sisters. I see myself. Then I see my sisters. Okay? Or my children. Okay? Because what is that? Motherland? The motherland is still Africa. It ain't gonna change. Okay? And then and those in the motherland are still black like me. Okay? So that plantation consciousness, okay, is just an illusion. It's just a brainwashing tool. A brainwashing instrument. Okay? Okay, so we'll continue with video 3.